of you had to deal with the public administration in the last few weeks? Hands up. Okay, quite many people. How did that feel? Was it easy? Oh. Could you maybe in the internet just find out which service you want to use and then understand quickly which documents you have to bring, where you have to go, at what time you have to show up? Or were you maybe even able to do it conveniently at home, sitting on your couch, having your documents at hand, maybe even using a mobile device? Or did your morning rather look like this? So you were commuting to a public office, you were sitting in a waiting room, you had to wait until your number gets called, and then worst case, you forgot a document, an important one. You can't email it, so you will have to show up next week again. So for me, usually when I go into a public office, that feels like time traveling back to the year 2000. So I have a long corridor, I have a dusty shelf with some brochures, I have outdated furniture, there are Windows PCs, and the application that run on this looks like Windows XP. And it's also hard to get information, so one department doesn't really know what the other is doing, so if I need some infos from somewhere else, nobody can get it, they can't talk to each other. So you can really feel the silo, and you feel the hierarchies. And usually after I was at a public office, I'm quite happy to be back in my working environment. So I'm a designer, I studied computer science, I work in tech since almost 20 years, mostly in startups. And usually this is how my working environment looks like. So we have open spaces that would invite for creative collaboration. We have modern equipment. We have nice coffee machines. And yeah, it's a lot of young, energetic people. It's fast-paced. And for us, work is even sometimes fun. I mean, not every day, but it can be fun. And this really left me with a question, like, why is it so different? Why are these worlds feel so different, and there's such a gap? And I mean, we read in the newspaper every day that Germany needs a better digitization, and we need more tech skill in the public sector. So why is it so hard to bridge this gap? And there must be ways to bridge it, I thought. How can we do this? And this question made me join 3 years ago almost the digital service. So here you see some of us. Back then, we were quite a small team. Today, we're more than approximately 140 people. And we were founded 3 years ago as a central unit on the federal level to build user-centered application and digital products and services with and for the administration. So, and this is where my learning journey began. And this is also where I had to understand, things are not so easy as I might have thought. Why? So, for example, in the private sector, when I want to build a product or improve things in my software, I would just get a team, I get a problem, and then they work it out as they go. So they find the best solution while they work on it. Yeah, well, that's not the mental model of the public sector. In the public sector, first you need budget. Okay, then you file in a household application, then you get money. Once you have the money, you need a team, so you have to create a procurement request or process. And there you have to really in detail describe what your product will be. So you do a lot of upfront design. So you do really decide before you build the things and before you really dig into the details what you need. And that means you can't work in the open anymore. So you can't have just the best people and the right skills working on the right problems to find the best solutions. That doesn't work really well in this setup. So, but changing this mental model is really, really hard. And also, when you zoom out on a more systemic level, you will see, the landscape of digitization in Germany is pretty complex. So there are quite a lot of different levels of responsibility. There's the federal level, there are responsibilities on the state levels, then also on municipalities, and all those different units have their own building units. So this makes a lot of players, and it's becoming really difficult to harmonize all these approaches. And it's also really difficult to have impact and find a central point where you could apply leverage to really change things. Yeah, so that means I had to learn it's really difficult, but it's not impossible. So how can you do it? So we're operating in a quite unknown and maybe sometimes a bit unfriendly environment. So for us, the first thing we do is we have to find allies. And an ally is for us someone who's open to the way we work, who is maybe already curious and already tries out new things. And once we found those project partners, we integrate them really deeply and closely to our work. So here you see a picture of my team with Mr. Schmidt. And Mr. Schmidt is working for a federal court in Germany. And he's a complete juristical expert. He enters data in a database. And we now build a new computer system for him. And he is working so close to our team that he really brings in all his knowledge. And we get quite fast through his help. But also Mr. Schmidt can participate in shaping the new solutions. So we co-create a lot with him together. So he now can help us find solutions how the software that he and his team and other departments at federal courts in Germany will use. So this is already a great bridge into this new environment. But it's not only Mr. Schmidt. We have to convince even more people. And to be honest, it's a huge cultural difference between how we work, our values, and the values of the administration. Some people work together since 38 years and still not call each other by their first names. Quite weird for us. But also like hierarchies, formal chains of responsibilities, sticking to the process are very high values to them. While for us, we say people over process. And we believe in shared responsibilities, autonomous teams, collaboration to find the best solutions. So this is really different, and it's difficult to establish mutual trust. So to do that, we have to find strategies. So for example, when we begin projects, we tend to really spend a lot of time in their offices and sit next to them, watch them work. And once they see that we're really interested and really want to know what are their pain points and what do they need, this is usually the moment where they start to open up and where you can take them along on this journey. But of course, the needs of the public servants are one pillar, but we're here to create great services for the citizens. So we definitely need to understand what they really need and what they expect. So we do a lot of user research. We look into quantitative data, but we do interviews also, focus groups to really understand, okay, what's the context of usage? What is currently most broken? And once we have first prototypes, we go into usability testings. So we try to get feedback quickly and often into our work to understand, does the solution work? Is this understandable? Is it usable? Does it even fix the problem? So, but what is really special when you design in a user-centered manner for the state is that the state is responsible for everyone. So we have to build services that work for everyone. But who is everyone? Like, it's not like in private sector where you could optimize for a specific user group that maybe has the biggest market share. No, we have to find ways to lower the barriers and make things accessible to many, many people. So, of course, we adhere to all the accessibility guidelines, and we put also a lot of effort in maturing and deepening our practices around accessibility. But that's not everything. Like, these are very well and super helpful categories of disabilities. But there are other vulnerable groups or underrepresented groups we need to think about. So what about people that don't have a bank account? Or what about people that don't have a laptop at home, but just mobile devices? Can they still use your service? Does it work for that? So, and to ask these questions and understand how can you lower barriers, this is a skill, and we really need to develop that skill. So we try to hire people that are good at this, but we also try to train our staff to learn how to deal with our own privilege and with our own cultural bias, to really become more sensible and learn how we can build services that are more inclusive. And while this is a lot of different methodologies that I just talked about, that are sometimes really hard to implement in the real world, the good news is, if you really put a lot of effort into all these aspects of the process and the work, the results are different. People feel it. So here you see an example of a platform that we built last year. So you can file in a tax declaration for your private property on this platform. Sounds terrible, but we get a lot of positive feedback for that website. And people really, honestly, they wrote us, a few people wrote us physical letters to say thank you. And someone even told us, why do you call this tax declaration? It doesn't feel like a tax declaration. I was so scared, but then it was so simple. And we also get this beautiful feedback on Twitter where someone said, oh, it didn't even take 20 minutes. And it was the best digital experience with the state I ever had. And while this feels like something quite small, okay, it's an interaction, it's 20 minutes, is that really so important? And yes, our answer is we believe it is totally important, because these little interactions, they can absolutely reframe the attitude that you have towards your state. There are studies from the US that people that make bad experiences have a way lower probability to go through the next elections. So if you manage to build services that feel good, where people feel treated at eye level, that are transparent, that are understandable, this is something that can really build up the trust again, that might have got lost in the last years. And then, I mean, it's difficult, but when you see it working out, it can be really, really rewarding. It's also creative work, and it can even be fun if you do it with the right people. But now, in the middle of my learning journey, I know it's huge. It's a huge task. So it's not a sprint, it's not a marathon, it's a relay race. We're talking of 50 years of a project here. So it's way beyond what one person can do with his career. But the good thing is, it's not just the digital service. It's so many places in Germany, and of course internationally, where we see this mindset and people that really try to bring this to the administration. And we think it's great, and we want to see more of this. And yeah, as I said, it's a rally race, and maybe one day some of you might want to take over the baton and shape how digital public services look like in Germany in the future. Thank you.